My name is Martin Kolczyk, and I serve as pastor to the seniors at Goodness Bible Church in Iowa City. And I was asked to just share a little bit about my life and the history, but right from the get-go, I want to say this is not my story. This is God's story and what He has done in my life. I'm 75 years old, and my beginnings happened in Berlin, Germany. I was born in Berlin, Germany in 1951 into a Catholic home, and the early days was rough. It was shortly after the war. We didn't have a refrigerator. We had an ice box, and the icemen came once a week, and we had to go 3 stories down and bring the ice up and put it in an ice box to keep our food cold. Meat only on Sundays. It was rough going in the beginning, but we survived. We made it. I graduated from grade school and high school. In my last year of high school, the school system in Europe gives you an opportunity to test out what you might fit into the working world. So my shop teacher said, "You're good with your hands. You would make a good furniture maker." So I did a month's worth internship, and it confirmed that that would be a good direction to go. So I signed a contract to get my journeyman training and also have post-grad work and degrees in that field. And it was a good fit. But then came August 13, 1961. That is when the Iron Curtain went up, dividing not only Berlin, West Berlin to East Berlin, East Germany, but also the whole Iron Curtain from East Germany to West Germany. And that really rocked my boat. Now, to give you an idea about this, what happened on the evening of August 13? Men and women from East Berlin were able to come in to West Berlin to work. So the night shift left home, came to West Berlin to work, and when their shift was over, they came back to walk back to their homes, and there was barbed wire fence, there were soldiers, and the parents could not go back to their home, and they were separated until 1989. So it divided entire families and entire society, and it was a real bad deal. And most people over here in freedom, they have no idea what this done to a family or to a nation as such. So this is what I had to wrestle with. And I was looking for a way to get out. I now had my degrees. I had a career that I could follow up on, but I needed to get out of this birdcage. So one hobby that I have since 1966, I'm an amateur radio operator, and another fellow from Berlin and we went in 1973, getting out of Berlin, go to Canada, into the Northwest Territory of Canada, for 1 year to find myself. That's actually why I left. I wanted to get direction as to what's this world all about and where do I fit in. So during the winter, we traveled with 7 Siberian Huskies and a rifle and a fishing pole and a tent and a barrel stove, and we lived off the land. Come spring, we got rid of the dog team, bought a pickup, and drove a pickup from the Northwest Territory all the way to British Columbia, which is about 2,000 miles, to the Alaska Highway. Went north to southern Alaska, and had a wonderful time there. Then turned around, went down the Alaska Highway to Vancouver, Canada, to go to the American Embassy to get a visa to get in the United States. They gave it to us without any trouble. And we drove the 101, the most western highway in the United States, from Seattle to Tijuana, Mexico. A wonderful place to see. Wanted to go to South America. Got into Mexico. In the middle of Mexico, we found out that there was some warring going on in Honduras, and we didn't want to get wrapped up with that. Went back to Brownsville, Texas, back into the United States. to New Orleans, and then wanted to go straight north to Saskatchewan, Canada, to have another winter in the bush, and came to all places but Iowa. What is there in Iowa? Well, we heard from somebody that there is a German colony, the Yamanas, which is close to Iowa City and close to Cedar Rapids. So we stopped there and we started to look around and we started to talk to some people there. And of course, I spoke German. And you know, they've got the bratwurst and the sauerkraut, and it was a perfect fit. Got in contact with the manager of the Amana Furniture Shop. He gave us a tour. He wanted to know what we're up to, and I said, well, I'm open to anything. I'm a trained furniture maker, and I had my papers and everything with me, and he hired me on the spot. And I said, well, there's a problem, because I can only stay for 3 months, and I need immigration papers. He said, no problem. We'll take care of all that. So they took care of this. I became a resident, and then something else happened. Shortly after that, this was now winter of 73, and on January 11, 1974, I dated an Amana girl, Judy Newman from West Amana. And it didn't take long for the sparks to fly, and we got married in August 1974, and Judy Newman became Judy Kolczyk. Within time, we two girls, Melanie and Tracy. And shortly after we got married, we thought, well, we ought to be going to church someplace. Started to go to the Amana church, but that was really not made for us for the simple reason. When you're married, you like to sit next to each other, even want to hold hands. Well, in the Amana church, the men sit on one side, the women on the other, and holding hands across the pew is really not a cool thing to do. So we looked for another church and found in an evangelical Lutheran church outside of Conroy, and went there for many years. At the end of that time, I was elected as the president of the church council, and then something happened at the Amana Furniture Shop. My boss came to me and he said, if somebody wants to have a piece of furniture built right now, it will take 3 years before we can deliver because we're so booked up. We're looking for new people to hire, and I want you to train them. So here we go. A young man was introduced to me, and I had qualms about him. He didn't smell very good. He had long, shaggy hair. He liked to have a little bit more of alcohol than he should have. He probably was a little bit smoking pot, and he was just not a good fit for life, so to speak. And he left after 2 weeks. Bad work ethics, but he was gone. About a year later, the boss came with another fellow, and that man walked up to me, very nicely dressed, very short hair, no beard, really kept very well. And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, "Hi, Marty." I said, "Do I know you?" He said, "Yeah, I'm Dave, the guy that wasn't worth very much in those days. But something happened in my life." I said, "What happened in your life?" He said, "Jesus Christ saved me." Oh, I thought, what do they call these people? Holy rollers? Something really radical? Remember, I was the president of the church council. Well, that didn't mean a lot once I started looking into what he was into. And then strange things happened. First of all, at break time, he had this big book in his work drawer that came out, and I looked at the heel, and it said, Holy Bible. And I thought, holy cow, what is this all about? And then something else happened. These little flyers appeared everywhere. They call them tracts. They were in my lunch box, and they appeared in my drawer. They were in the bathroom, and if I left the window of my car open, there was one in the car, or even under the windshield wiper. And every time I started reading this, I felt guilty. And I did not know what I was feeling guilty about. And I had a little bit too much of this guy. So one morning, I punched in and I went to my workplace, and his was right behind me because I had to supervise him. And I had my fist sort of put together, ready to let him have it if he got a little too thick with all this stuff. But that morning, something magical happened. He came walking up to me, and there were other guys we were talking about before we start working. And he stepped up to me and he said, "Marty, I did not, I did not act the way I should have been. I was a little too thick with this stuff. Would you forgive me?" And in that moment, it really hit me to say that in front of all the coworkers. That took courage. At break time, I walked over to him and I said, "Dave, you got something I don't have. What is it?" He smiled at me and he said, "Before I go in that direction, tomorrow morning, when you get into your car and you come to work, I want you to turn on an FM radio station on 101.9 KNWS, a Christian radio station out of Waterloo. Listen to the guy that speaks right in the morning when you come to work." And I did. And it was Chuck Swindoll, Insightful Living. I remember nothing about that Bible study, but I remember the tag on, the thing that comes on just before he gets off the air. This is what he said. And this was in January of 1985. Chuck said, "You might be in your car driving to work right now." And I was. And you see the hills on one side and some meadows and some fields on the other with the snow on it. And I was there. Now he said, "I want you to imagine, don't close your eyes, imagine there's black ice. A semi is coming from the other side, and he gets on that ice and starts to slip, and you get underneath and you have a death experience. You're going to be dead on the spot. But the Bible says that the soul of man will live forever. Either wake up in hell or in heaven. Which place will it be for you?" And my wheels started to really go around in a hurry. But I have to agree with Chuck. I'm going to be in hell because of the stupid stuff that I did in my life. But Chuck said, "I have a solution for your problem." And this is the prayer afterwards. Chuck said, in your heart, you can align yourself with the Lord. Ask him to forgive you of your sins and save you. And if you mean it and pray this prayer, and he let me in this prayer, you will be saved. And I did. I prayed in the car, going up the hill to Amana Refrigeration between Middle and High Amana. And I became a born-again Christian. I got to work. I flew by time clock. I didn't even punch in. I went to Dave, and I said, "Dave, I think I became a Christian." And he said, "You think?" In that moment, I had assurance of salvation. I knew I was saved. I got home that afternoon. I ran into the door. I hugged my wife and kissed her. And she said, "Where were you at? Did you stop at the tavern?" I said, "No, I committed my life to Christ this morning. And sooner or later, I hope you will too." I started to study the Bible every night, reading in our kitchen, uh, different passages, started left and right, met it in the middle, and I really got a lot out of that. We got out of the Lutheran Church and we went to Faith Bible Church in Robbins from here on in. And we had wonderful teaching there, great fellowship. Now this was now at the end of 1985. Coming into 86, I was baptized at Easter in that church. And one of the couples at that church, that name will ring a bell, John Kinzenbaugh, who is the owner of Kinsey Manufacturing in Williamsburg. They're members there. And he shared that there will be a German theologian from Faith Baptist Bible College speaking at family camp at East Iowa Bible Camp. And we ought to be going there. And that fellow's name was Dr. Manfred Kober, an East German runaway. And I thought, oh, that is wonderful. So I went to my wife and I said, look, honey, uh, East Iowa Bible Camp is going to have a German fellow there that's going to speak on ministry and the Bible. And she looked at me and she said, okay, what does that mean? I said, well, there's 3 Bible lessons a day, and there's fellowship and great food. And she said, 3 Bible studies. I can hardly make it to the morning service. What, you want me to go for a whole week for 3 sessions a day? No, I don't think so. I said, okay, let's make a compromise. We'll go Monday night. And if you like it, we come back. Otherwise, we don't. During that time, I was studying the book of Revelation and the second coming of Christ. And I communicated these things to my wife all along. And uh, I didn't see any change in her life. But Monday morning we went. What was the guy talking about? Second coming of Christ. And he put a big overhead on the wall, and the verses and pictures spoke to my wife. And she said, what does it take to be one of those people? And I said, why don't you go up and ask him? And he shared Christ with him, and she got saved that night. We went back the entire week. During that summer also, my kids got saved. After that day, when my wife got saved, I told the Lord, Lord, I'll go any place, anytime, at any cost to serve you. This is my promise to you. Nothing happened for 2 weeks, and the phone rang. And I said to the Lord, you got to bring that opportunity to me. I have no idea where to look. The phone rang. Dr. Kober from Faith Baptist Bible College called. And he said, I have a ministry, Smuggling Christian Literature Behind the Iron Curtain. I want you to go with me. Boo! Here was the call I was looking for. We shared that with our church. They raised the money for us, and they sent us. So in 1988, we had our first mission trip, taking Christian literature behind the Iron Curtain, and that was a new beginning for me. We came back, and you know, when you rub shoulders with missionaries, the word gets out to other places. And an opportunity arrived, and that was when Gorbachev came into play in Russia. Perestroika, the easing. Remember, one of our presidents was standing on the Berlin Wall and calling him out and said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Well, it was about to happen. And a group formed called Co-Mission, where evangelical missions get together waiting for the Iron Curtain to come down. And when it did, they started to go in, and they were looking for people to be part of that. So Campus Crusade for Christ and the Josh McDowell Ministry were looking for people to come on board with that. And we felt God calling us to that. So we joined Josh McDowell to go to Russia and Ukraine to do all kinds of things. Everything from street evangelism. By that time, his book, More Than a Carpenter, was translated into Russian. As a matter of fact, they printed more versions in Russian than in English. So they were looking for people to go out on the streets of Moscow, St. Petersburg, everywhere, to hand out New Testaments and Josh's book, More Than a Carpenter. It was marvelous. And they're looking for other people too. And that is something that really had me excited and still excites me today. And that is regular people in the pew God can use on the mission field. Let me give you an example. We were talking about this up in Story City at an Evangelical Free Church. And a woman came up to me afterwards and she said, I don't know what I have to offer, but God told me to go on this mission trip. And I said, look, if God is telling you to go, you got to do it. What do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. I'm a teacher in the school, and I do sign language. I sign for deaf people. I said, I'm sure God can use this. Get this. We got into a bus, picked us up, took us to the hotel, and there was a circle drive in front of the hotel to the door to unload our luggage. She was sitting on the outside looking the other way. She didn't see the hotel. And there was this huge park, hundreds of chessboards. Russians know how to play chess. I've never won in Russia any chess game. But she looked a little closer, and nobody was talking. They were all signing. She flew out of the bus. She told her roommate, "Take my luggage up there. I'm out there." We loaded her up with more than a copy in the New Testament, and for 2 weeks, that's all she did. We hardly saw her. When we left, there was hundreds of deaf people that said goodbye at the bus to send her off. There is room for anybody to do ministry. Let me give you another example. We built Bible colleges and seminaries in Russia and Ukraine. And one of the chores, because building material is very expensive, but there is a lot of rubble, a lot of buildings of red brick that are laying all over the place, and they are there for the taking. How about cleaning 20,000 red bricks? What do you do with that? You build a Bible college. You build a church. You build a Bible camp. You build churches. Or you build onto a pastor's home. There's all kinds of opportunities. No, it's not a glamorous job. But these places now are educating the future spiritual leaders of their country. Other ministries were Bible camp ministry, teaching English as a second language, and so many opportunities that lay people were able to do for the glory of God. We took over 1,500 people to the mission field, and it was a joy to see these people leading other people to Christ, or help the local church to get the word of the gospel out. And then my wheels fell off. What I mean by that, I needed 3 knee replacements. One didn't take, the other one had to be redone. So it was a painful time. But several people from my own church and other churches around got excited about doing ministry. And after they came back from ministry trips, they talked to me and said, "I want to go further. I want to go to Bible college." And I said, "Wonderful. Why don't you go here, there, give an option?" And then I started visiting them on their campuses. And before I knew it, I talked in the missions department. I spoke at chapels to get people excited. I helped teach hands-on classes on hands-on ministry in 10 Bible colleges and seminaries in the Midwest, and took care of young people and helped prepare them to go into the world and minister with different mission agencies, different churches. And that was one of my other most valuable time to serve the Lord. Then we were close to retiring, and we came to Good News Bible Church here in Iowa City. And after the first year, the board came to us and asked us to start a ministry to the seniors, and that's what we do today. For the last 11 years here at Good News, we have been ministering to our seniors with all kinds of different things. We have got something on every week that we do together, and help them go through the older years, between 55 and when the Lord calls them home. And it's been a wild ride. Let's put it this way. It was very fruitful. Our time here is not done until the Lord calls us home. But I want to encourage you. Go out there. Serve. Salvation Army. Different things on the local level. There are opportunities to go on mission trips. Go. Get your feet wet in serving the Lord. It'll bless your socks off to serve the Lord, and it is also very rewarding to you. Thank you so much. God bless you.